Welcome back to America Decides. While appearing at the UN General Assembly yesterday, President Biden touted his administration's work on addressing climate change. In California, lawmakers have often been ahead of the federal government when it comes to pushing climate policy, although they have not always been aligned on this substantive issue. CBS News California investigative correspondent Julie Watts joins us now from right outside the Capitol in Sacramento. It's good to see you, Julie. If there's any state, and I'm a native Californian, I know a little bit about this, where elected officials and the public are more or less aligned on the issue of climate change, it's California. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, polling shows that the majority of Californians are concerned about climate change, and you'd be hard pressed to find someone in that building who would identify as a climate denier, at least an elected official in that building who would identify as a climate denier. But that does not mean that California lawmakers vote in favor of environmental legislation 100% of the time. In fact, we recently found about 27% of votes from Democratic lawmakers in California's capital were against environmental legislation.
And what would be the reasons for these lawmakers, in particular the Democrats you just mentioned, to either be against or not embracing of all manner of climate legislation?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. In some cases, they just withhold their vote. They don't vote against. That's considered a polite no here in California. So, I mean, Major, you know this, but, you know, folks at home may not. California is a leader, obviously, in environmental policies and in green energy policies. A lot of what they are debating in D.C. is already law here in California. Cap and trade, for instance, has been law here for years, right? So the policies being debated inside California's capital, those are often novel, right? They're untested in some ways. And so there is concern among California lawmakers that there may be unintended consequences for moving too fast. They point to gas prices, which are the highest in the nation here in California, in part because of some of our environmental legislation. And they also point to jobs. This comes as a surprise to many, but California is among the largest oil producers and refiners in the country, and that accounts for a lot of jobs. So we tracked down a couple of the lawmakers that are most often associated with the oil and gas industry, and we asked them to explain their votes. Here's what they said. How do you explain your vote on these bills?
Well, for me, I always look at the unintended consequences. Not every community can afford whatever policy we pass out here, not because they don't want to or they're climate deniers, it's because they just can't afford it.
What do you say to your constituents who support climate change legislation, who want to reduce CO2 levels, and who see that you vote against these bills that have been billed as climate change reducers?
I'd say I'm on the same page as they are. I want to reduce carbon emissions. I am a believer of climate change, but we as legislators have to look at issues from all sides. We have to think about what's going to, keep our economy going, what's going to keep people employed.
So you can see economy is certainly top of mind inside this building and for many California voters right now.
There is an old saying in our business, Julie, you know it well, follow the money. Is it true that when you were looking into this, you discovered that Democrats, maybe to your surprise or maybe to our audience's surprise, with some regularity, accept money from the fossil fuel industry?
Yeah, overall, and I actually was surprised to find this, overall, California Democrats get more money from oil and gas than Republicans do in California. And that is not the case in Congress, right? That's unique to California. Now, it's likely because we have so many more Democrats here in California. We've got a Democratic supermajority. So just the sheer numbers, when you total it all, account for more money. But what's really interesting is we wanted to know, is that why they're voting against environmental legislation? So we analyzed, with the help of CalMatters and their digital democracy database, we analyzed more than 6,000 bill positions on over 100 bills related to oil and gas. And we looked at how everybody voted in every committee and on the floor. And we found there was not really a correlation between money and votes in favor of oil and gas. In fact, in some cases, people who did get money from oil and gas voted against their interests 100% of the time. So then we looked deeper at some of the other lobbies here in California. And I know you know this, but labor, is probably the strongest influence inside California's capital, the labor unions, that is. Stick with me here, Major. Recently, we were looking at different studies analyzing how much the jobs pay here, right? Fossil fuel jobs, according to recent surveys, pay more and have better benefits in California than many of the clean energy jobs do. That also is not the case across the rest of the country. That's the case here. So you've got labor who are very supportive of the oil and gas industry because it means jobs. And when we looked at the bills, we found that those bills where labor was aligned with oil and gas were the ones that the majority of lawmakers did vote in favor, or at least in alignment with oil and gas. Bottom line, oil and gas has a much better track record on bills when they can team up with labor on those bills in California.
Connecting all the dots and seeing through some of the assumptions. Julie Watts, thank you very much. Now back to the presidential election. Pop singer Chappell Roan says she will vote